Our next example of contested spaces takes us to the Amazon HQ2 decision. In September 2017, Amazon announced that it was going to select a city or a location to set up its #2 headquarters. So following this announcement in 2017, over 200 cities in North America placed bids to attract Amazon HQ2. Now, this was a prime example of how the state and market work together. The state and market wanted to attract Amazon to bring in that workforce. They saw the potential job growth within their metro area. Initially, it was 50,000 jobs that was going to be spread out over 2 different locations. So 50,000 jobs. The average salary was going to be over 100,000. So cities saw this as an opportunity to grow their workforce and grow their tax base, being able to spend more money to generate more tax revenue, provide more services. They saw this as what's known as a multiplier effect. So if we're bringing in 25,000 jobs as part of Amazon, we're going to grow our local economy. It's not just Amazon employees coming in, but those 25,000 individuals, many of them are going to have families. Many of them are going to need to find a place to live. Many of them are going to need regular services like healthcare. They need retail opportunities. They need dining opportunities. So we saw this multiplier effect as part of this Amazon decision. So the jobs, the tax base, the multiplier effect was all there. Some of the cons, some of the concerns was housing costs. If we're going to infiltrate a market with 25,000 high-paying jobs, we're going to escalate our housing costs. We're going to create a pinch for supply and demand, which will really affect our marginalized groups, our lower income groups. We see the strain on infrastructure. So where are these people going to live? Where are they going to park? How are they going to commute? There are certain costs that the state has to absorb with this. And what really was important was how much money was Amazon going to require in its bid. So the #2 most valuable company in the world has a lot of clout. And what we found was that cities and state governments were willing to put up tremendous amounts of money, taxpayer dollars, to attract Amazon. Forgo spending on social services like healthcare, education, and transportation in order to attract Amazon. Some states, like Maryland, were willing to go in the red for 20 years, making this long-term bet that after 20 years, having Amazon in your state will pay off. So these were big decisions, and it comes down again to contested spaces, those with power and authority versus the marginalized groups that aren't going to gain the benefits or much of the benefit of attracting Amazon. The first site that Amazon selected was located in Queens, circled here on the map, Long Island City. When we look at our interest groups, we see the market, right? New York City is the financial capital of North America. There is a highly skilled and educated labor force. Transportation is there, right? New York City has perhaps the best non-automobile transportation in the country. And branding, right? It's a pretty big deal for Amazon to have a presence in New York City, right? Have some of that New York clout, New York branding. The state came in and said that we're going to remake the waterfront. On the screen is Governor Andrew Cuomo, who worked with Mayor Bill de Blasio in making the bid more attractive. They said that they're going to fund job training. So the state is going to undertake the cost of training local individuals to work for Amazon. So when you think about the cost to Amazon, it's really minimal, right? They're going to have a workforce trained at the expense of the state to work for them. The state will pay for the infrastructure. So they'll upgrade the waterfront, not just to make it more visually attractive, but make sure that utilities, water, sewer, transportation options are connected. the state was willing to put up $2 billion plus tax breaks to invite Amazon into New York City. New York City, one of the most attractive metropolitan places in the world, was willing to spend $2 billion and provide further tax breaks, which will limit longer-term revenue, in order to attract Amazon. Local veto power was bypassed, and the idea that New York needed to spend money to make money. So the market and the state were both very much on board in attracting Amazon to Long Island City, New York. When we look at this location a little closer, we see that this Amazon HQ2, which is highlighted with the arrow at the bottom of the screen, was just a couple blocks away from North America's largest public housing complex, the Queensbridge projects. Over 3,000 New Yorkers live there. This became a very contentious topic where not only the money that was being handed over to Amazon to attract them to New York was a big concern because of foregone costs, but what was going to happen to the people that were living in this area? These 3,000 individuals that were living in low-income housing, the individuals that were living throughout Long Island City, which has a relatively low median income compared to the rest of New York City. So the end result was really a groundswell, a grassroots movement that rejected the money, the bid for Amazon. And while New York City was selected as one of the destinations for HQ2, they ultimately backed out of the bid. And Amazon ended up selecting Northern Virginia. In this case, the state wasn't giving quite as much money, but they did give a $550 million bid to attract Amazon. Again, the second wealthiest business in the world got $550 million from the state to move to Northern Virginia. Northern Virginia agreed to facilitate the cost or facilitate infrastructure improvements through absorbing the cost and the construction. And they rebranded this area National Landing, again, to give it a new image to attract Amazon. The market, that political proximity can't be overlooked, right? Amazon identified New York as the financial capital and Washington as the political capital. So not too many surprises when it came to these two destinations. And the DC labor pool is among the most skilled and highly educated labor pool in North America. So Northern Virginia became the destination for Amazon. It didn't, again, pick two headquarters as originally planned. It now has just one HQ2 in Northern Virginia. And we can see the result of the state and market working together to attract this company. Our next example of contested spaces takes us to Lower Manhattan. Lower Manhattan was the site of the Stonewall riots in the 1960s. In June 1969, the tension boiled over between the local LGBT community and the police force. Now, in the 1960s, the LGBT community was highly discriminated against. The bars were closed down. There was a special police task force that pursued gay groups, and what the result was that certain spatial boundaries were created where parts of Central Park became gathering places, parts of Greenwich Village became gathering places, and the Stonewall riots was just the boiling over of tension and contestation between local authorities and the LGBT community. This June 28, 1969 event is what galvanized the gay rights movement, not only in New York City, but across the United States. In 2016, the Stonewall Inn became a national monument protected by the U.S. Department of the Interior. So this part of the city, the Greenwich Village today, is a very large LGBT population. It's still a destination for LGBT groups, but it's no longer as contested as it was in the 1960s, when again, being gay in many cases carried with it legal penalties. And then our final example takes us overseas to Northern Ireland. Look at Belfast. The map on the top right-hand side of your screen shows the island of Ireland split between the Republic, which is highlighted by Ireland's green, white, and orange flag, and Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK, highlighted by the Union Jack. The contestation in Northern Ireland takes place between the Catholics and the Protestants. The Catholics, who have long held claim to this space, and the Protestants, who were planted in Northern Ireland by the United Kingdom going back into the 1600s. So this contestation, primarily in the northeast part of the island, remains very tense. Ireland succeeded from the United Kingdom in 1916, and then later on became the Republic of Ireland after a war. But the northeast part remained part of the United Kingdom. So what we're finding in Northern Ireland today is the result of centuries of contestation, centuries of a marginalized group, the Catholics, having less recognition, less vote, less political influence, fewer opportunities than the Protestants. The 20th century saw what were known as the Troubles, where paramilitary groups, like the Irish Republican Army or the IRA, would attack different political institutions and figures associated with the Protestant United Kingdom. And then in the neighborhoods, we saw the growth of peace walls, which physically separated highly segregated communities. Communities that are almost exclusively Protestant or exclusively Catholic were separated by physical barriers. The image on the bottom right shows the different communities. And again, you can see how segregated this city is and how these peace walls further institute contested spaces, further divide communities from coming together and resolving some differences. The image on your screen is of an orange parade. Every July, individuals celebrate the conquering of Ireland in the 1600s by William of Orange, hence the name Orange Parades. And these parades go through the Catholic neighborhoods, which rile tensions and drive groups to collide. Image here of women wearing red and white, the colors of England, and carrying with them Union Jack purses, the flag of the United Kingdom. Again, something that might be recognized as simple national pride becomes a very divisive and contested image. Generally at night, following the orange parades, you see a very high police presence. Again, part of that state authority, part of that force that institute and pursues the law. These orange parades often end in violence, fires, smaller scale rioting, as the Catholic communities become so incensed by the ongoing display of dominance in Belfast by the Protestant groups that are loyal to the United Kingdom. And we see how kids in Northern Ireland are also growing up in separate lives. The schools are almost entirely segregated. You're either a Protestant loyalist, meaning that you're loyal to the United Kingdom, or you go to a school that is almost entirely Catholic, Republican, somebody who wants to make Ireland one republic. So as we go into the 21st century, and we move deeper into this decade, we see how coming together, overcoming some of these contested spaces is increasingly difficult when we have a very divided population, a population that is divided by history, a population that today continues to be divided by physical peace walls, and also our kids are growing up in isolation. When we think about segregation and isolation, we see kids in Northern Ireland are growing up in two very different environments, which will not help the city and the state overcome periods of contestation.